to rant about Penny. I just feel the need to. I have been loving this volume so far, but this made me so sad. Like, legitimately, when I was rewatching this episode, I had to stop myself from crying out of, not, like, I don't know if it was disappointment or frustration, but it hurt. Like, I hated this. And I don't think I've ever, like, hated... Actually, that's not true. I've hated things that have happened in RWBY before, but, like, I hate this, not in the way that it's like, this is terrible, the writers suck, the show sucks, and you're bad for liking it, but just in a way that just, it just made me sad, bro. This episode, chapter 12, there will be spoilers, obviously. This episode did the impossible. And I can't believe I'm saying this, because I've been such a strong advocate against, like, not against people who say this, because they're valid, but I just have so strongly disagreed. Up until now. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but this chapter makes me wish that Penny had stayed dead. This chapter makes me wish that they didn't bring her back to life in Volume 7. I love Penny Polendina. She was my first favorite character in the show. I have loved her for so long. I think Nuts and Bolts was my first ever ship in the show. I don't even ship it that much. I really don't enjoy the ship anymore, which sucks because, you know, it's so sweet. And like Volume 7, there's a lot of sweet moments. Volume 8, there's a lot of sweet moments. But there's just so much that feels fake about their relationship now, and that makes me really sad. But that's not what this is about. This is about this chapter. That's another thing. If you love Nuts and Bolts, that's awesome, and it's very sweet and cute. And I don't hate the ship or anything, but I don't like it as much anymore. It feels like any nuance or any characterization is just gone. Like, you know what would have been cool to see? You know what would have been really, really cool to see that we never got to see? Penny finding out that RWBY had been lying to her for months about Salem and about Jin. Can you imagine a scene where Penny's like, so what you said, it wasn't true? Like, so you lied to me. Like, her whole thing in Volume 7 was her speaking out very bluntly about her morals and what she thinks is right and wrong. And especially when she disagrees with other people about it. Like with Winter or with Ironwood, where she would just be like, I do not see what is good about any of this. Like, those were some of her best moments, but as soon as Volume 8 happened, as soon as she left Winter and Ironwood and such, she seemed to revert back to, I don't have thoughts or feelings or opinions of my own, or I have feelings, but they're just sadness and I want hugs from RWBY. Like, it seemed, Chapter 2 seemed like they were going to go somewhere interesting with it, with her being like, I was the protector of Mantle, but now I wish I was not. Or not that. She said, I'm much more than that, and I wish I was not. Like, Penny not wanting to be a maiden. Like, that was an interesting plot to me. Or a character moment that I thought would be interesting. Volume 7 commentary said that they had considered giving her an identity crisis about being a clone, or am I really the same? Like, I would like it, not so much of, oh, I'm a clone, but going down a similar path if they had done something like I have a different piece of soul. Am I the same person? Like, she has the memories, she has the core, which, by the way, we were able to recover her core from Amity Arena when it finally made its way back to Atlas. Like, so you admit that the core is the bit that has the Penny in it. And you were able to give more of Pietro's soul. If Pietro giving his soul the first time to make Penny made Penny, then, like, an individual person with her own thoughts and feelings and identity, how come giving another part of his soul wouldn't make a completely different person with different identity and thoughts and feelings? And the reasoning for that was because of the core. Like, the core that he planted from one robot body to the next after she died. And then he gave part of his soul, but that core made that soul what it is, which is Penny. I would have thought it would be really cool if, you know, if they really wanted to go down the route of her still having the memories, which I think could have been sweet. Like, you could have done the Penny 2.0, but she doesn't remember them. That could have been cool. But if you wanted her to have the memories, have her be like, but am I the same person? Like, I remember these things, but my soul is different now, or anything like that. I feel like there could have been something interesting to be done, even if it ended up with the same, like, oh no, you are the same. I am the exact same person because I am me. My soul is my own. I make it what it is. Would have been cool, but they didn't do anything with it, which is fine. I know they said that they were pressed for time and that they wanted to do that, but then they just didn't, which I feel like missed opportunity. But I was fine with it. Until now. Like, this is the conclusion of that? I'm so sad. Penny was, like I said, my first favorite because of the what she has going on. Like, they made her a quote-unquote real girl. The whole point of her Volume 2 arc, and again in Volume 7, is that she is already a real girl. Ruby's whole speech to her about, like, what? Like, I'm not real. Of course you are. You think just because you got nuts and bolts instead of squishy guts makes you any less real than me? Like, that was the whole point, is that just because she has a robot body, she is still who she identifies as. She's still herself. She's still real. She's a real human girl. They did not need to make her a human, but, well, they didn't make her a human body. That's the confusing part. This is just from a scientific standpoint in the universe weird, but, like, I often dismiss things in this show as it's just magic. I won't think about it. But it's really hard not to think about this, because what they did was they took her existing robot parts and created a new Penny, just the shell with those parts, so that part would have the virus and it would just leave her soul ripped from her body. So ripping her soul out of her body doesn't kill her. So how come she died when her body was destroyed the first time? Wouldn't her soul still be there? Or is it because the soul is, like, attached to the body? But if the soul was attached to the body, why wouldn't it get ripped out when they separated? I don't know. That one I'm a little bit more okay with being like, it's magic. But the part that I don't understand is why, when ripping the soul out of the body, the soul is just, like, I'm just picturing, like, a soul just kind of floating in midair, and then it just becomes Penny-shaped. But she's tangible, like, she can hug them, and she has skin and flesh, which that's the annoying part to me, is because it's like you are who you identify as. Like, that's the whole thing with souls and Remnant, is that your soul is what you make of it. An aura is a manifestation of your soul. So why doesn't her new body look the same as her old body? I hate it. And also, why does she suddenly have human functions? Like, oh, I identify as real, therefore now I can feel things. Like physically feel. Like, she could always feel emotions and such. But she's like, oh, doesn't, like, warm hugs. Oh, that's, like, so cute. But, like, it's such a sweet moment, and I wish that I had been invested in it, because I would have loved that. Like, and it's so cute the way she, like, got the hug, and, like, do hugs always make you feel this warm inside? And then she's just like, more, and hugs everyone. Like, that's adorable. But I couldn't let myself like that. And a lot of it is tied to how coded Penny is, and I do understand this is not intentional on the writer's part. It's more than likely not intentional, but Penny is extremely coded as two things. She's extremely trans-coded and neurodivergent coded, especially autistic coded. And doing this, feels like it takes those things away, and, like, those were, like, the two main things about Penny that made me connect with her so much. And maybe they'll keep, like, I hope they don't get rid of the autistic coding. Like, I hope she keeps her personality and isn't just, because, like, a lot of her quirks that were, caused the neurodivergent coding was because she's a robot. A human robot, but a robot nonetheless. And, like I do not understand, or I will prepare for 6 possible outcomes. Like just really cute little, like, things like that. And I hope they don't get rid of it. So they might keep that. I'll keep from judgment until later for that one. But I never hit record. Dang it. So I never hit record on the actual camera. That sucks. But I have the audio, so I guess I'll just put clips over what I said there, which stinks because I was emoting. But yeah, I really hope she gets to keep those quirks, because otherwise it's like you just lost a big part of what made her who she is, like the big part of her character. The whole point is she's already a real girl. And, like, the Volume 7 finale where she got the maiden powers, like, already I was like, that feels... Like, it was great because, like, it clarifies, like, see, you're a real girl, but we didn't need that. We didn't... Like, I'm glad that she became the maiden because I thought that was super cool just in general. And it also clarified that, like, oh yeah, the magic recognized you as such. But we didn't need, like, there were a lot of people who were like, Freya's the blue fairy who turned her into a real girl because she has the maiden powers. Like, no, the whole point is the reason she could get the maiden powers was because she already was a real girl. So them having her suddenly have a human body makes me so sad, so hurt. I legitimately almost cried. Not when I was watching the first time, because when I was watching the first time, I was just, like, shocked and, like, just, like, this is the one thing I said I didn't want them to do with the staff. This is the one thing that people were like, oh, maybe they can make a human body for Penny with the staff. And I was like, please, God, no, please, God, no, please, God, no. And they did, and it makes me really sad. I connected with her so much because of the things that came along with her being a robot, like the identity crisis going on there and, like, not feeling real. And as a non-binary person, the whole, like, you are not your body thing really struck a chord with me. And I know that you could take this and, like, if you wanted to run with the trans allegory, because she's so transcoded, you could do the whole, like I've seen people argue, like, oh, she's transitioned, like, that's her getting her new body, now she's a real girl. Well, that's, like, trans med stuff. I'm not gonna even think about that stuff. Because you are who you are. You don't have to transition. Your body doesn't say anything about who you actually are. I mean, whatever makes you happy. And, like, I can understand, like, you know, gender euphoria and things like that. And so it makes sense that Penny's, like, super happy in this new body and stuff. But, like, that makes it seem like she wasn't going to be happy before. Like, she wasn't whole. Like, oh, I can feel hugs now. Like as if she was missing out on a part of life and that now she can. Which is also, like, a disability kind of thing. Like, oh, I couldn't feel. It's like, oh, a blind person suddenly being able to see. And, like, wow, colors are so beautiful. Like, that kind of plot. Also, why is she not freaking out more? Maybe this is also just because she's autistic coded, but it would have been a great moment for, like, sensory overload. Like, you know, she has her butt, but if she can feel things for the first time, like, she can already, like, I guess, see and hear, but she's doing that through, like, human senses now. And she's, like, tangible touch, and if she couldn't feel all warm inside before, which, you know, that kind of stinks, because hugs don't physically make you feel warm on the inside, they can make you feel warm on the outside, I guess, like, you know, warming your body heat on the inside or something, but, like, the implication is that the hug makes her feel warm and fuzzy inside, but, like, that's love, bitch, like, that's something she already should have been feeling with hugs, like, she already should have been feeling those lovable, like, those kind loving feelings, like, because we've seen that she loves these characters so deeply and they love her, but this makes it seem like she was missing a part of that and now she suddenly has it. Like, I loved Penny so much and then they took away the things that made me love her, and that makes it sound like I'm like, oh, I only liked her because she was a robot. No. I liked her because she was relatable. Because of what she stood for, because of the message of her arc that we had in volume 2, we got to the point of, and that's why I didn't like last chapter either. Let me pull up last chapter and the part that I hated. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish that it's another moment where I'm like, this is so sweet. I wish that I could enjoy it. I wanted to enjoy it. I tried so hard. Okay, bud. Where is it? The moment that, yeah, this whole thing right here, starting with Ruby's surprise of like, oh, she's right, you are human. Like, no, duh. Like, here. She's right. Sorry. So, like, you know, this is sweet and all, but it felt way too easy and way too fast, but that's more of a pacing thing. But thematically, the part that I hate is coming up.
I stopped the virus.
No. I liked that it was still there. Here, what I wanted, especially from this, like, even after this scene, what I was just hoping is that they would not get rid of the virus. I really, 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 really wanted her to not, like, I mean, even if, like, that was more of an idea. The idea that I had that I really liked was that she never gets rid of the virus and she has to live with it for the rest of her life. And especially once RWBY was like, ooh, we could go to the vault. I'm like, if you go to the vault, it activates step 2 in her protocol, which is to self-terminate. And then I'm like, what if she has to live the rest of her life with this virus that she has to fight against to keep from self-terminating? What a great allegory for depression. Like, how cool would that have been for her to, like, have a support system and be able to fight back and have coping mechanisms and, like, Like, there was so much potential there, but then again, they don't always handle mental health and mental illness and mental disorders and stuff the best in this show. They're not the best at not always having some ableist undercurrents, which, you know, is just a failure of doing enough research, I suppose, or just an awareness. I don't think it's willful ignorance or, like, malicious. It just happens. It just happens. They don't do a great job with those subplots. They started to with Yang, and then it just plummeted. But that's a different topic altogether. I feel so mean, but I just ugh. So yeah, this is the part of the scene that I hated the most. That they acted as if this was new information.
A soul.
That's who you are. Our friend, not a machine.
Not a machine.
Yeah, we know that. Like, this was. The way that I can best describe this scene is that it is a payoff that had no setup. It is the resolution to an arc that did not happen. She has not been worried this whole volume about whether or not she's a machine or a human. We know that she's a human. She's a machine and a human. She's a person. Like, that's the whole point. She figured that out in volume 2. She came back to life in volume 7. And the entirety of volume 7, that was never something that she struggled with. There was one moment with Winter where Winter was like, I let my emotions get the better of me. What do you mean? You wouldn't understand. And then she looks down at her hands and goes, oh, right. But immediately Winter's like, no, that's not what I mean. I just mean that this place holds a lot of memories for me specifically. So it's clearly like, no, I didn't mean you can't understand emotions because you're a robot. I meant because I have trauma in this house. Like, that was the only thing. Everything else. Like, even when she got the maiden powers, there wasn't a moment of hesitation of, like with Freya, if it had been like, are you the one? And she had a moment of, I don't know if I can, ma'am. Or something like that. Like, there was never any of that. And it wasn't necessary because we already knew that she already knew that she's a person. Everyone knew that. They never treated her like she wasn't. The only people who seemed to treat her more like a tool was, like, Ironwood and, Winter had to based on, like, orders from Ironwood, but she still treated Penny like a person. The one person who they had, like, not treat Penny as a person a couple times and refer to her as Robo Girl and Tin Can and stuff. Well, they had Harriet refer to as Tin Can. But they had May Marigold, of all characters, to scoff at Penny for wanting to be called Penny. Like, she's like, all right, Robo Girl, what's coming up next? And then she gives an explanation, and she's like, and my name is Penny. And then May's like, why have the one canonically in-universe trans character scoff when another trans-coded character says they want to be called by their name and not treated as what their body is? That feels like the dumbest decision to me. I'm sorry. Why would you make the trans character voiced by a trans actress the one who says things that are like coded as transphobic? Like, it just feels weird. And like, Hayden Jensen's an amazing voice actress. I don't know if she like opposed them on that or whatever, but I don't know. That's a separate thing. But yeah, I hated the that's who you are, our friend, not a machine, because that was never something she was worried about. The problem wasn't, am I a machine or am I your friend? The problem was, there is a virus inside of my brain that is taking over my volition and I can't know how to stop it. Until Jean comes in and boosts her aura, and then she's all better temporarily. But I was like, oh, okay, so this is just building up again to be like a big payoff of Penny's gonna do something bad while hacked, and she's gonna have to fight against it, and it's gonna be really hard and bad. And then nope, this episode, chapter 12, just proves that the entire subplot, starting with, did it start in chapter 5? Because chapter 5 is when Penny actually got hacked. No, chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where this arc began. And, like, it's been hinted at in the intro. Like, it's a big part of the intro is showing Penny's eyes flash red in that drawing. So, like, Penny being... Well, I guess it's not hacked. She had a virus implanted into her, but it's so much easier to just say hacked, so I will. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is when they got one of her swords. And Watts did the whole... You know what they say. If you can't beat them, then make them join you. which, by the way, handshake meme between Watts and Oscar on if you can't beat them, get them to join you. But yeah, so chapter 3. This has been building up since chapter 3 of the volume. Since chapter 1, if you want to look at the intro song. But yeah. And they've been talking about it this whole volume, about like, oh, hacked Penny, what will she do? What will hacked Penny do? But it turns out all that happened was, oh look, Amity's falling, and then Penny like pushes it up to hold it up, but then oh no, she's hacked, and so she falls. But don't worry, the message already got out, so falling didn't really do anything. And oh no, where's she gonna crash? She crashes on the doorstep right in front of the main characters, right as they were about to have to actually make a choice. Like, May was literally like, this is not a situation where everyone wins. Like we have to choose, so choose. And I was like, really? They're finally making the characters make choices? Holy shit, this volume's great. And then they hear a crash, and then, that the knock and Klein is there, and then it's like, oh, okay, Klein's gonna help Nora, now what? And then there's a crash, and there's Penny. So Penny held up Amity, and it worked. She fell, and landed in front of them, then she was passed out. She woke up, she pushed Klein over twice, and then got knocked out by the Hound and lied there again, and then woke up and tried to fly away, and then they held her down and boosted her aura, and so she was fine again. Nothing happened, no casualties, no injuries. They didn't really have to fight her, they were just holding her down. And then this chapter, they just take her to the vault, and then make her a new body, and then the version not make her a new body, they take her robot parts out of her. Essentially, they just separate her soul from her body, is basically what it is. But, with a loophole so that it actually fits with the whole, creation, because the relic of creation can't destroy something or separate. So that makes sense that was the loophole that they went with. Like, that makes sense. But yeah, that's all that happened. It just, the shell that was left just self-terminates. Nothing came of that plot line. And that sucks, because that was one of the most interesting plot lines in the volume. And it was like, so many people who've hated on the show and hated on Penny and got super pissed that Penny got brought back to life in volume 7 were like, okay, I can see it now. Now I understand why they brought her back. Like, look at this, she's getting hacked. Maybe she's going to do something. Maybe she's going to kill an important character, or she's going to have to fight someone, or fight the main characters, or anything. Like, yeah, look, in the intro song, it has Penny face, where is it? Where does it happen? Yeah, look, there she is, like, all conflicted about her identity or whatever, but don't worry, that meant nothing. She doesn't have to be conflicted about her identity. She never was conflicted about her identity this whole fall. Actually, yes, she was. Yes, she was. It's what they set up in chapter 2 that I really, really liked, which was when she was talking about how she didn't want to be the Winter Maiden. She wishes that she was just the protector of Mantle again. She finally knew who she was and her place in the world and was doing a good job, and now she's so much more than that, and she doesn't know what to do about it. That was great. What happened? Where did it go? Where did that plot line go? She got hacked, and then that became the thing, and it's like, okay, I understand that's a plot line that could tie directly into the whole character thing of, like, who's your identity and all that stuff. But then neither of those went anywhere. There's still time. There's still 2 chapters left, so maybe that'll happen. And maybe Penny will die. Maybe she got this human form so that she can die, and the maiden powers will go to... I would assume Nora or Cinder. Those are my 2 main guesses. If Penny dies, that's where the powers would go. I'm also just upset that she's going to Vacuo. And again, I love Penny. I would have really, personally, on a personal level, I was like, oh, I wish that she'd stay with the group because I love her and I want her to be around more. But from a writing standpoint, and from a is this a good decision standpoint, I was like, I know that they're going to have to leave her in Atlas. Like, that's what makes sense for the story. That's what's better for the plot. That helps with the whole character bloat thing. Why would she not stay in Atlas and try to help make repairs or whatever happens after Atlas falls? But now it seems like they're just all teleporting to Vacuo, and then there's probably going to be a detour for Volume 9 where they fall into the Abyss. Which also, I really hope that if they fall into the Abyss, it's all of the characters. I hope that it's all of Team RWBY and Team Arson, or whoever's left in Team Arson. I'm assuming it might be Team Aspen by the end of it, but honestly, given the way that these past 2 chapters have gone, especially chapter 12, I'm starting to be like, is anyone gonna die? Are there gonna be any consequences this entire volume? Like, it feels like they had so much great setup, and every plot line has been resolved so fast with, like, no consequence, nothing that's changed a character's perspective on themselves or the world around them or anything. Like, we had the breakdown that Ruby had where that looks like it might be going somewhere, but there's only 2 chapters left, so I feel like that might be it. I feel like that might be it, that her only breakdown, because she cried for a bit about, like, oh, I don't know what to do, but then she got a plan, and then she's like, I have a plan, and is back on it. Similar with Cinder and Watts making her cry last chapter, or chapter 10, which everyone praised and loved. It was like, holy shit, maybe this time Cinder would change. Not in a way of, like, redemption or anything like that, but, like, just maybe that there would be an effect from something that happened to her. Because remember when she, like, had that death fake out and came, like, after volume 3 when she couldn't speak and her eye was, like, all messed up because of RWBY, and everyone was like, this is the most interesting Cinder's ever been. All that we needed was for her to not talk, which is not actually the thing. It wasn't about the talking, and Jessica Nigri does a great job voicing her these days, especially. But it was just like, oh, she had a failure. She did something. She failed something. Is she going to grow from this? And then volume 5, like, nope, she's right back to just like, oh, you're not worthy of such power, but I am. Like, the exact same thing that she did in volume 3 with Pyrrha. She just did the same with Vernal. And it just feels like every time. And then she got, like, destroyed by Raven Bronwyn, but then came back and was, like, totally just like, I want the power. Just nothing has changed. Nothing had changed. But this volume has such a heavy emphasis on Cinder in the trailers, in the fact that the very first shot of the volume is of young Cinder scrubbing the floors. So, and then Watts did that big thing, and this is maybe me being dumb, because, like, let's be real, like, all that we really got was this, oh no, that's right, that's what this chapter is. Never mind, there are 2 things going for it. Because I was like, oh, it was just like a look over her shoulder with a smirk to be like after Watts yelled at her, I was like, okay, fine. She is just back to normal working with Watts and Neo and smirking and happy about it, even though Neo's, like, blackmailing her and stuff. Like, I don't know. But then I cut to this and I was like, oh, right, that's this chapter. This chapter is the one where, like, she does the same thing. She has a smirk in the middle of some other plan. So I'm hoping that, like, but because of how they're setting up for Cinder, like, I feel like this is going to be a fail for her as well. Like, I don't feel like she's going to get a win this volume, which stinks because I really feel like she should. Not necessarily that Cinder needs a win, or I mean a loss, because I feel like she should have a loss. Like, from a standpoint of just her character, it feels like this is building for her to have a loss. But more importantly, I need the main team to have a loss. Like, they need to take an L this volume. And it really looked like they were gonna. And then these last 2 chapters make it so it's like, oh, I guess everything's gonna be okay? Right? Because they amped this volume up as having, like, stakes that are even higher than volume 3. But even in volume 3, like, most of it was a tournament arc. And then, but even that, like, amped it up. Like, Penny died. Pyrrha killed Penny on accident because of Emerald and Cinder. And Cinder was, like, the whole fall of Beacon. You guys already know this. You've seen the show. This one, there's only 2 episodes left and we haven't gotten any big thing. Like, there's tons of big things that are all set up, but none of the setup has had payoff yet. Unless, of course, you know, the thing that I mentioned with Penny, which was payoff without setup. Or rather, they gave her a setup, and then they paid off a completely different arc that didn't happen. Where is what am I looking for here? I forgot what it was that I was searching for. It was something Penny related earlier. I was talking about Penny. Oh yeah, they're gonna fall. They're gonna fall. That's one thing I was gonna say, is that I really hope that the entire team falls down together, because I don't want them split up again. God, especially with Oscar, like, I want him to get to interact with the main 4 characters. Like, that's what they tried to do in volume 6, by separating John Wren and Nora from the main girls plus Oscar, but because they also added in Maria, it kind of made it feel like Oscar and Maria were just both like additional characters, not like actually integrating Oscar into the team or anything. He was just kind of a... This isn't how I think the merge works. Like, I've made tons of videos, or not, no I haven't. I made a video that was super long, and made tons of like posts and stuff, and talked about it a lot. So this isn't me saying that this is what the merge is. This is me saying from a writing standpoint, Oscar is a vessel for exposition. like he's not a vessel for Ozpin, but that's how the writing treats him, is as a vessel for exposition. Like, not necessarily before as much. Like, before it used to be, like, Volume 5, it was Oscar as a vessel for Ozpin to come through and exposit as they all sit in a room and listen to him talk. Volume 6, that's when Oz left, and it was like, ooh, cool, and then they didn't really give him, like, the attention or development that he needed. Like, he just needed one scene. We just needed to give him one scene when he ran away, so that we could see what changed between, I'm just going to be another one of his lives, aren't I? And I did some thinking, and I do know I want to do whatever I can with whatever time I have left. Like, you did some thinking. Show us the thinking. What changed between those two moments? I'll never get tired of ranting about that. But that's not relevant. What am I talking about? Oh, right. Because this chapter makes me worried that they're going to start using, because the merge is happening and pretty soon it's going to be, they're becoming each other. Like, we're noticing they're both picking up on each other's traits a lot lately. They're becoming each other. I still feel like, you know, after it's all said and done, it's going to be Oscar's identity. You know, he's still going to be like, call me Oscar. But now I'm just worried that his character is going to just become what they used Ozpin for, which is just, let's not focus on what's actually going on with this character. Let's just have them say information. like here, like, he's going through, he's probably, aside from Penny, going through the most emotional turmoil this volume. Actually, I would say more so than Penny even. Like, he should be getting to have an emotional reaction to all this. We got a snippet of it in chapter 9. We got to have a moment of him, like talking about how he feels like he's not the same person anymore, but that's not in a merge sense. That was in a sense of like, wow, this adventure has changed me. I don't feel like the same farm boy I once was. I'm not him anymore. Like, I'm a different person now. So at least there was that. But then, like, right afterwards, he does the whole thing, like, oh, I don't like using magic, because when we use it, I can feel us merging faster. Of course, they don't clarify what that means or what that actually feels like to him or what's going to happen, because why would they clarify that after establishing it 4 volumes ago? It feels like it's going to be by the end of this volume, but now I'm wondering, like, is it? Like, they've been setting it up to seem like he's going to finish merging by the end of this volume, but now I'm like, there's 2 chapters left. How are they going to do that? Like, and each chapter is, like, usually, like, a little under 20 minutes. And there's so many plot lines to wrap up. It's like, how are they going to do that justice? This thing that they have been building up since Volume 4. Are they actually going to pay it off in a way that makes sense? And I want it to be finalized. I just want... Because, like, they're putting in all these extra things to, like, make it very clear. Like, ooh, look, they're merging. Can you tell? Can you tell? Can you tell? And it's very clear that they don't want it to be obvious on Ozpin's part. Because when it comes to, like, poses and such, it makes it, like, if, you know, Oscar's standing with the cane in the typical Oz pose, or with his hands behind his back in the typical Oz pose, or using, like, some, like, longer words and stuff and some, like, manners. Like, that's easier to notice. Because, like, you know, he's getting the memories, he's going to pick up some vocab words, and he's getting the muscle memory, so he's got the mannerisms, and, like, the disposition that's coming from, like, all those memories and the weight of this burden. Like, that's all going to change a person, so it makes sense that it would become, like, but on Ozpin's part, it's so much harder to notice, and I only really do, I feel, because I'm so hyper-fixated on them, and on that merging process. Because, like, if I listen to it enough, I'm like, I can notice, I can tell I can hear that Shannon McCormick inside Oscar's head is talking more like Oscar. Like he's talking more like Aaron does movies, taking similar pauses and breaths and putting stress on the right syllables and things like that. It's like, oh, you sound way more like Oscar now, like way more soft spoken. Like his voice is kind of like dropping at the end of sentences, kind of like the me I always wanted to be. Like the way that he kind of, I'm exaggerating, but like the way that his voice drops into like a deeper, softer timbre. Like, things like that. Like, the pronunciation of certain words. It's like, okay, so Oz is clearly also being affected. And he's, like, you know, smiling and making more Oscar-y faces. But those are a lot harder to notice because faces move and emote. And they have the same face. So, like, of course it's going to be harder to tell. It's just because I obsessively analyze this that I can tell that they're both merging. But it's like, it feels like they're amping it up so that it can be obvious on Oscar's part, and that once the merging is done, it'll like subdue a little bit, because I feel like it's unlikely. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. That's not what this video is supposed to be about. Who let me go on this tangent? What was I saying? What was this actually about? Oh my god, Emerald, I love you, but that's such a funny place to pause. Me too, Ironwood. You'll never guess who I just heard from. Weiss, your scroll is see-through. We can tell it's winter.
There's something else to consider.
Yeah, I do like, he says there's something else to consider. And then, yeah, and here. But, well, just a little thing that people probably don't notice because they don't obsess over this stuff. But Oscar very often, pretty much always, pauses after the word but. And Ozpin has like this thing where he sometimes pauses after the word well in the same way. And in this scene, they have both Oscar and Oz do but well. Like they do the Oscar but pause and they do the Ozpin well pause. And I think that's interesting. And then they also both say there's blank to consider. See, like.
Nobody's going to want to keep it from playing.
See, those were both Oscar. And see, like Jin, but well, he's a character. And then. Right here. There's still James and his bomb to consider. So yeah, but yeah, like because of how quickly the switches, like if you look at how fast they switch from Oscar to Oz now, like and how simple it is, like just the blink and the gold. I mentioned this in the last chapter as well because it was just, you know, blink and soft gold. The hair moved this time. I don't know if that means anything. But it was a lot less of a build up. It was very quick this time. But because of that, I feel like it's just going to get smoother and smoother and pretty quick. Soon it'll just be a blink. You won't see any visual cues. Maybe the audio cue will be gone as well. And then eventually Oscar won't need to switch at all because there won't be a need to because there'll be one soul. So, yeah. So yeah, I'm just kind of worried that he's going to become an exposition machine just because, you know, if you have thousands of years worth of memories, you're probably going to be the character who's like, oh, by the way... Because we've seen, and like Oscar even saying, like, and we haven't even told you about him yet. It's like, so Oscar does know about this stuff. So, like, I don't know how many memories he has or which things he doesn't. I assume he still doesn't know where the beacon relic is, but then again, he just used magic twice. So, I don't know. Anyway, back to what the point of this freaking video was, which is Penny. Not just Penny, actually, no. I want to talk about the freaking vault thing that they did. She's not your typical girl. No, she isn't. But now she is. You've made her freaking just quote-unquote normal. And see, like, even Yang there with her, like, flexing where she's all, like, the mechanical parts are just extra or whatever. It's like, so you admit that it being mechanical doesn't make it less part of you, right? Or is it the opposite? Is she just saying... Yeah, okay, the soul is who she is, the mechanical parts are just extra, so it's Yang being like, this arm isn't who I am, which is interesting, because I kind of thought that, like, a lot of that arc was like, oh, this is a part of me now, this is, like, an extension of myself, just like how they always said weapons are an extension of yourself, and that arm is basically her weapon now, I don't know. That might be reading too much into it, but I know there's a lot of people who will talk very differently about the whole Ironwood symbolism, where they're like, oh yeah, Ironwood ripping his arm out of the thing to try and protect Atlas, and then having to replace it with metal, is just a symbolic of him losing another part of his humanity, which, sure, I get it. I guess I can see that, but like I feel like that would have hammered home more if that had been used in a moment, like if the consequence of needing to replace an arm had been used in a moment where he was not being humane. like that was a badass moment of like him just like forcing himself to rip his arm, and his aura was shattered. That wasn't even his semblance of metal, METTLE, not AL. His semblance, like it wasn't that. It was just sheer frickin' willpower that he yoinked his arm out of that hard light shield, and it ripped the skin off and everything, and like he was doing that to protect the people and stuff. Like I get that that's like I'm hardening myself, but that was more of like a steel will kind of thing, like not a this is me sacrificing my humanity because I want to go attack Watts. And also, he didn't even kill Watts. First, I mean, I think that he should have dropped him off the ledge and into the lava. That's just my personal thing. But at least if he had killed Watts, that would have given some semblance of a meaning for it to be like, yes, he's losing his humanity. But instead, he like spared Watts. He showed mercy. I don't know. So that's a little weird to me, the way that they handle all of these like prosthetics and such. Like, Pietro's good. He's a good one. He's a good disabled character. We got him at least. If Neo talks, I give up. like the show, like I said, like they've had issues with accidental ableism. But if Neo talks, I'm just like, yeah, selective mutism is a thing, but that's not the way that she was set up. And just like having it be like, oh, the blind character suddenly sees, or the mute character suddenly speaks. Like, just let disabled people exist, man. I'm so upset. I'm so sad. Like, I feel like this is worse than if Penny died. Like, I am hurt worse than if Penny died. If Penny had died this episode, it would hurt me less than what they did to her. Like, it's just because I had such a connection to the character. And now it's just gone. It feels like none of that was for anything. None of it meant anything. I'm legitimately sad. I'm just... I feel like this is something you could have discussed with Oz as well. How much of the old Penny would be my work, and how much would be her? The old Penny. Meaning the body? Like, how much would be his creation and how much would be her? Because it's like using the same parts. So really all it is like taking the parts and moving them next to her. Like, it's just take the robot out of the soul. Like, it's just remove robot. Delete file robot.exe. Like, that's like all that this was, which is, like I said, like they found a loophole to make it creation and not destruction. I don't know why a soul separated from a body would suddenly just get its own body. Why would people die? Why would anyone die if that was the case? Your soul lives on in the afterlife. They've shown the afterlife. They've shown Ozma between realms when he was dead and brought back, and then brought to this white liminal space so that the god of light could curse him to reincarnate for eternity. Like, so why would Penny's soul not go on to the next plane? Or for the very least, because, like, you know, the maiden powers transfer via the soul. Like, that we know, like, that would be like, oh, whoever was last person in her thoughts, which would probably, in this instance, be RWBY, but, like, I still feel like they're not going to make one of our main characters into a maiden. I think Nora might be a maiden. She's still a main character, but she's not one of the main four girls, is really what I mean. So I don't know. But the point isn't who it would have been, because that's not what happened in the show. But it would have moved on that way. But it was not like the entire soul goes in. Like, Freya is a part of Penny now, is what that was. So yeah, Freya's part of the aura. How come she's not like a love child between... No, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. That's because, because that's how Penny identifies as Penny. Similar to if Oscar afterwards still identifies as Oscar, that's who he is. And then it's just like, it's just a part of you. Don't forget about the rest. Which just also makes me really hope, and I've seen so many theories and people getting excited about the possibility of separating Oz and Oscar with the Staff of Creation. If they do that, if all that build-up and setup for the merge becomes nothing, I'm giving up. I'm giving up. And by giving up, I don't mean I give up on the show, it's terrible, but more just in, like, I give up on getting like, it's just gonna suck. Like, obviously, I want Oscar to be his own person. But that's the thing, is that he doesn't need to be yoinked apart in order for that to be the case. Like, it's just a part of you. Like, I thought that was gonna be such a good thing in this volume. And the only good thing that's come of it so far is the Renora scene. That was incredible. I loved the Renora scene where and like that's what I wanted to happen. I wanted her to take time for herself. And she did, and that's great. That scene was so emotional and mature and effective, and like that was a healthy relationship. Like that was great. That was so well done. But it makes me worry how they're going to handle the Oscar situation if this is how they handled the Penny situation, and the two of them are just like they're parallels. Like there are too many parallels between those characters for me to not think that they characters themselves are parallels at this point. Like, not that they were created to be that, obviously, because, you know, that they didn't even have it planned, but like they are. Like at this point in the story, their plot lines, their identity crises, their everything are directly parallel to one another. So, and again, and parallel doesn't mean exactly the same. So I hope, and like a lot of the time parallel means look at all the similarities, but like we're going to go in very different ways. That's still a parallel. So I'm hoping that the Oscar one actually follows through on the it's just a part of you kind of thing. It's like your soul, that's who you are, our friend, not a machine, or, you know, like it's the soul is becoming a part of you. I made a whole video on the merge. Go watch that if you want to understand what the heck I'm saying right now. Yeah, let's move on and talk about the vaults. Or not the vaults, but like the liminal space that they created.
We don't have any other options.
I hate that. I hate I know I said I don't like saying hate in this show because there's so many people who just live to hate on this show. And that's not me. I enjoy this show in spite of and because of its flaws. But they need to stop. Just please, they need to never, ever, 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 ever again in the show say there were no other options. They need to make that never happen again. They made that mistake in Volume 6 multiple times. They need it to stop being a thing. Like the whole with Cordovan, and like, we didn't want to steal from you, but you gave us no other choice because you walked up to a military base in a time of an embargo and a shutoff where she was specifically instructed by the head of the military and the guy who has 2 council seats for the government of Atlas, the biggest kingdom in the world, was like, hey, don't let anyone through. And they were like, can we go through, please? And she was like, no, my job is to say no. And they were like, well, that's just mean. And like they can't tell her why. They can't be like, oh hey, the world's gonna end. She doesn't know the world's gonna end. I mean, yes, I hate Cordovan, but that's not the point. And the point is that it's just these kids show up and they're like, can we have special permission to go through the Atlas military? And she said no. And then they're like, you gave us no other option. And then they steal from the military. And yet again, that's one of the situations where there was no consequence. No consequence. And I'm okay with Ironwood being okay with it. Like, but what I'm not okay with was the way that he took it. Like, hang on, we're looking at it. We're going back, because I'm rambling and I'm ranting, and that's okay. I'm gonna post this whole thing. It's gonna be all over the place, but I don't care, because I have thoughts right now. And I need to rant. This moment, right here. Let me find it for you. Yeah, right here, right freaking here. We assumed the ship was stolen.
Stolen? Okay, yeah, it was stolen.
And look, his response is he smiles and chuckles. He chuckles? Like, if they wanted to illustrate, like, look how kind-hearted and trusting Ironwood is, because at this point in the story he was. He really was. If they wanted to illustrate that, they could have him be okay with it. Sure, like on a moral standpoint, be okay that they did that if they really wanted to do that, which I feel like he should have been upset, just like, not from a writing standpoint, but from in real life, why would you not be upset that happened? But they should have made him scared about this, in my opinion. He should not have been like, oh, ha ha ha, these children stole from my military. What he should have been is, if they wanted to hammer home the whole Ironwood is paranoid, he's making bad decisions because of how paranoid he is, why is he not freaking the frick out about the fact that this little group of ragtag teenagers managed to steal and infiltrate the Atlas military fleet and get into the kingdom when he shut down all communications and all access to the kingdom because he's afraid. And then these kids were just able to just do it with like no problem, basically. Like, it was just relative ease. Like, they just went on the airship and then Weiss kicked the guards out of the door. That's all it took. Like, why is he not freaking out about that? I don't know. Never mind. What was my point? My point was that they need to stop with the whole there was no other choice thing. Especially I don't even know if this is worse. I don't know which is worse. I don't know if the Cordovan one is worse or the Pyrrha one is worse, where they have that mysterious red-haired lady show up by the statue in case the statue wasn't enough heavy. I'm being really mean. But the thing that frustrates me is, like, when she's all like, oh, she understood that there was never really a choice to make. Way to rip the agency out of your characters yet again. Pyrrha's life was her own and her death was her own. Give her that respect. Like, come on, let your characters' choices matter. That's all I ask out of the show, is that the characters' choices mean anything. Please. They started to address it last chapter with the Amity went up and our message went out and no one came. But like, that's not a consequence directly of her actions, because it's like, yeah, you got Amity up, but it's not your fault that nobody came. Like, oh, you still tried. I want real, direct consequences of the character's actions that you can point to and be like, that is clearly intended as the consequence. Not, oh, well, they lied to Ironwood for the whole volume, and that's why he doesn't trust them, so you can, like, look at that and see his breaking point. Because, like, yeah, that's what happened. But it's not something most people noticed. Most people were just like, oh, Ironwood's at a breaking point. They were right not to trust him. Not Ironwood's at a breaking point because they didn't trust him. You know, like, that did not come across. And the fact that Penny never... I would have loved it with Penny, and I would have loved it with Winter. I would have loved to see them realize, specifically Ruby and Weiss related, had lied to them. Especially the fact that Weiss, the whole scene with Weiss and Winter, where Weiss is like, oh, people are just looking out for themselves and their secrets. And Winter's like, Ironwood's not keeping secrets from me. And Weiss is like, are you sure? Like, she's trying to make her doubt, like, oh, Ironwood might be keeping secrets from you. People are just looking out for themselves and their secrets. And it's like, you're saying that as you are keeping a huge secret from Winter. The secret, mind you, that you got so pissed about that you yelled at Oz in the snow for, and that's what led him to run away. Like, yeah, he shouldn't have run away, but that's not the point. The point... Maybe I should do a rant on the previous chapter and then talk about how they handled the whole Ozpin thing, because that's just frustrating, and then the whole Emerald thing, too. Like, I like Emerald, but them just being like, why don't you just leave? Shut up. I hate her. I'm not gonna forgive her, too. Aww. Sorry, I'm being really mean right now. And I think it's because of how good the rest of this volume is that this feels like a disappointment. Because this volume is my favorite. It is my favorite volume of RWBY already, and it's not even done. So many of the episodes, it's just like this volume has just gotten better and better and better and better. But then chapter 11 and 12 are like... 11 I could give a pass, I guess, because it's like, yeah, a few elements of it really disappointed me, but it wasn't bad, and it didn't really have a huge bearing on the current plot. Like, okay, fine, if we want to skip ahead to everyone accepting Ozpin and Emerald, fine. Missed opportunities there, but maybe we can explore it more in Volume 9. And there were a lot of really good moments in last chapter. This chapter, however, they just... We'll see where it goes next, because I might be wrong, but they just kind of fixed everything. Like, all the setup for this, like, Atlas is gonna fall, the people are gonna die, there's gonna be a bomb in Mantle, Ironwood is gonna be there, like, pretty much all of this terrible stuff that they've been building up is, like, the problems and the conflict, and, like, you know, Salem and the whale and everything, it's like, it's just gone. And I don't think it was anticlimactic that Oscar blew up the whale. Like, I thought that was a pretty cool thing, and also a nice subversion that it's like Ironwood, the person who was on our side the entirety of last volume, is the real threat now, because anyone can lose their humanity. And I think it's cool in his foil to Oscar that they had going on last volume, with the whole, like, Oscar basically just telling him straight up, like, if you sacrifice your own humanity in an attempt to save humanity, you have no chance in saving humanity. You've already lost yours. Like, that's basically what that volume was for him. Talking way too much about things that aren't what this video is going to be about.
Then ready yourselves.
This was so easy. Nothing happened. I feel like Nora from RWBY Chibi. Nothing bad ever happened. Ever. Like, it's okay to have happy endings and stuff, but this felt cheap. Cheap sounds mean, because, like, look how pretty it is. Like, this is gorgeous. The animation, the voice acting, the facial expressions that they do. This guy's so fun. Like, there's so much so good that goes so right that things like this that makes it just sad. Like, the music's amazing too, like the directing. It's just the writing that's seeming to go downhill. What I'm hoping, and is possible, but I might be giving too much credit, but what I'm hoping is that this buildup of everything seeming fine, the next 2 chapters are going to rip away from us and plummet. Like, I want this volume to hurt. Everyone does. That's what we want. This needs to be the fall of Beacon 2.0. The fall of Atlas needs to happen. And that's not in a way like, oh, I want the characters to suffer, or like it has to be an exact like replica of the fall of Beacon. But like, they haven't really had any conflict or problems for the last several volumes since the fall of Beacon. Like, volume 3 is the last time like anything big and intense happened, really. Like, not that there wasn't intense stuff happening, but like anything that was like our heroes taking an L. And the thing is that it was so interesting because the fall of Beacon, they had no idea what was going on. They were just kids in a tournament arc having fun. And the bad guys were the ones like making all this stuff happen under the scenes, and it's like, what's going on? And it was terrifying, and it was great. And so this time, it's like now they're fully aware of what's going on, and they are powerless to stop it. But that doesn't mean that they can't try, and they have to try, and they have to do everything that they possibly can to do as much as they possibly can. And everyone was really looking forward to that, and I'm really looking forward to that if that continues. But this staff kind of just was like, poof, no more virus. Poof, all of the citizens can be refugees magically to a different portal through teleportation. Which, 2 things. 1, earlier in the episode, John was like, let's just teleport everyone to safety. And Oscar was like, yeah, we can't just wave it like a magic wand and expect all our problems to go away. That's exactly what happens later in the episode. They wave it like a magic wand and all their problems go away. Which I'm hoping is just foreshadowing that both of these are going to go badly. I hope this is foreshadowing that something bad's going to happen to Penny and something bad's going to happen to the refugees. Which sounds horrible. Those things sound horrible. But something that this show has needed, that it seemed like this volume was building up to. Like, it seemed like this was going to be the volume where they fixed this problem that RWBY has had for so long, is that our characters were going to have consequences. Anything that they did. Anything that they do would maybe have consequences this volume. But no. Like, yeah, oh, Amity fell. Like, it was already on the ground. It was, like, already, like, that didn't undo anything. All you did was you got the message out to the world. What I'm hoping... And especially, like, once we find out this is what's going on in Vacuum, like, I'm hoping that message helped Salem. I'm hoping that RWBY telling the world about Salem and the relics and everything caused mass panic. Because Amity fell right afterwards. Amity was the global communications tower. Which, by the way, if you establish global communications, why not, instead of telling the entire world, oh, by the way, here are these magical, all-powerful relics and also magical maidens that if you kill them, you can probably get their superpower, magic power that will allow you to access these vaults that have superpower, magic power, cool things. This won't get all the selfish people in the world to fight. Like, I want that to have negative consequences. I want the world to be in panic and disarray because that's what would be realistic. Like, I want that to have helped Salem out. So I think that would be cool, and that would be a big consequence for an action of our heroes. Right, what I was saying is, why not get it up and then talk to, like, Glinda? You have global communications now. You could contact anyone you wanted. So instead of telling the entire world first, maybe get in contact with Glinda or Headmaster Theodore and be like, hey, so here's the deal. What do we do? And have their judgment factor into it. Which, I mean, I could see people being like, oh, then you fall into the whole pitfall of, like, the whole pitfall issue of, oh, our heroes aren't getting to make their own choices. They're just having the adults do it or something like that. But it just makes more sense than to tell the whole world, and then also to tell the world Glinda and Theodore can tell you more about this, or they can verify this. Way to put a target on their backs. Like, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, writing-wise. Like, the fact that, like, they're kids. You know, RWBY is a kid. Team Ribbon is full of kids, and they're, like, optimistic, and they're full of this idealism and this belief that there is good in the world and stuff, and that's great. So them trusting the entire world with all of this information makes sense. The only way that it will be bad is if it doesn't have any negative consequences. Like, the issue wasn't, like, with RWBY, like, crying to Yang. Like, the issue isn't, oh, Amity went up and no one came. The issue is Amity went up and then it fell back down, meaning everyone was told about Salem and then couldn't get in communication with anyone. The communications tower fell, and now everyone can't contact each other right after the message being like, we need to unite the world, otherwise we all die. So I hope that there are consequences. I hope that the world is fighting. I want a world. I want the Great War 2.0. I can't believe I'm saying that. I want the refugees to die. I want Penny to be hurt or die, and I want there to be another world war in Remnant. I can't believe I'm saying those things, but that's how high the stakes are, and that's how little of payoff we've had for them, that it's like, at this point with 2 chapters left, something terrible has to happen in order for any of this to feel like it meant anything. Wow, I didn't think I felt this strongly until I started talking about it. Right, okay, moving on to actual building the teleporty thing. See, like, this was a second version of it, where Jean did the same thing as with Amity, where it's like, hey guys, Atlas is falling, but, and then it cuts out. So, like, that would have been great. That would have been a great time for people to panic. Does anyone panic? Nope. Look at their reactions. Oh no, just slight worry, which is fine if they had showed any more, but instead, it's just, oh yeah, Atlas is falling. And actually, let me go back through here. But yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, Atlas is falling, and then the teleportation pods appear, and everyone's like, oh, I guess we can go through these strange, random, magical teleporty portals. I can just get to safety. No one has to be like, oh my god, Atlas is falling. Like, why are they not panicking? Why is this not helping the Grimm? There are Grimm everywhere. Why are they not attacking? People should be dying. Why don't the Grimm follow them through the portals? Can they do that? Can they not? Grimm have physical mass. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to be, unless it's like, oh, the god of light bullshit. But I don't feel like they gave the parameters for that. Also, the dude was like, you need to give me information on how to break the space-time continuum. And they're like, blueprint. I'm sorry, you can't tell me that they know how to break the space-time continuum. If you establish it in the show that you need to know how to bend the rules of space and time, that should have been like a hard no. That should have been like a clear, okay, that's an obstacle, we need to think of another way to do this. Yeah, okay, so here's Penny. Oh look, I have skin, I have flesh, I have squishy guts, and now suddenly I feel more real than when I had nuts and bolts. I do like that moment of her having to watch the shell of her old body die in front of her. I like dark shit. I mean, I like the optimistic, hopeful message of the show, but I feel like in order for it to hit harder and feel more real, you need dark stuff to happen so that it makes sense that Oz is always talking about how RWBY has this unquantifiable spark that can ignite hope even in the darkest of times. Like, that kind of thing. Like, thanks, Dumbledore, but like, yeah. And it's interesting that we see it through Robo-Penny. Does this mean Robo-Penny still had, like, a consciousness? That's interesting, too, that fact that you can see the aura, or see through her. So maybe it's like, oh, she's not tangible, but then she can hug and everything, so. But this is creepy. It's cool that she had to watch her body die in front of her. But it doesn't seem to have impacted her at all. Maybe it will later. Maybe I'm just expecting too much too soon. So maybe later she'll have a freak out about that. But right now she's just kind of doing the whoop pose that she does. And when this happened, I think in my reaction I was like, oh, Penny versus Penny. Because I feel like at least that would have been something. Having Penny with her new body having to fight her old body and like confront that. At least that would have had something identity crisis wise. Like the human in her battling the machine in her. Like that could have been a nice manifestation of that arc. But I mean, I guess it makes sense that the machine would just immediately self-terminate, since that was the protocol, was open the vault and self-terminate. So I guess my argument there doesn't make a lot of sense, but...
Are you okay?
Of course I am. Nothing bad ever happened.
Do hugs always make you feel this warm inside?
I hate that. That line makes me want to cry. Like, look how cute this is. I want to love this moment. Again, Nuts and Bolts was my first ever ship. I want to love this moment. But, like, it's not even Nuts and Bolts anymore. Because she's not made of nuts and bolts. She's got squishy guts, so now the ship is just squishy guts. The whole thing is that RWBY was able to make her feel like a real girl. Like, as she is. She was accepted for as she is, who she is, not what she's built out of. This just makes me sad. It just makes me sad.
Yes.
Like, and this is such a cute moment with, like, more! Like, that's so cute. I want... We should probably make sure our theory works.
Can't start the evacuation.
Like, I can't believe that they were just willing to make that, to take that risk of, let's rip her body out of her soul. And then just, I don't know, you're gonna have to get creative. Like, just, like, figure it out, dude. And then it's just, there's no consequence. Like, she's just fine. Everything's fine. Nothing happened. Hacked Penny never did anything bad. Like, there were no consequences whatsoever to Penny being hacked. That entire plot line. Ironwood working with Watts. Like, Watts escaping. The virus that was implanted into her. None of it made anything happen. They were going to go to the vault anyway. Like, if this hadn't happened, they would still have had that same conversation about what to do with the staff. They probably would have just gone to the vault and did the teleportation thing. They would have just done the same thing. The only difference is that they had a detour to be like, oh, make Penny okay again, which wouldn't have needed to happen if Penny was okay the whole time. So what was the point of the virus? Is it going to go somewhere? Maybe the virus transferred with her soul. That would be interesting, but of course that's not what happened. So, like... because that's part of her programming. I don't even know how that would work. If the virus transferred with her, that wouldn't make sense. So, like, I'm trying to bend over backwards to find ways that this could still work and not feel like such a dissatisfying ending to an arc. But...
Let's try the quick version. Can you make a bunch of doorways in Atlas that open at a single spot in Vacuo?
Sure.
yeah, why Vacuo, by the way? Didn't you just ensure safety in Haven? Wouldn't it be a better idea to move them over to Haven? Or Mistral, I mean? Especially since Salem's force is already attacked there. But that's more of a, what are the characters making this decision, not so much why are the writers making the decision. Because, you know, we're going to Vacuo next, so of course the writers want us to be moving to Vacuo. But, you know, that's less of a... Like, I can understand them choosing Vacuo. Like, I guess it makes sense. It's just kind of... feels arbitrary, relatively. Like, I know that's where they want to go next, but, like, Vacuo hates Atlas. If you're evacuating Atlas, why would you bring them to the place full of people who hate them for exploiting them with slave labor and like, taking over their entire environment and polluting their whole homes? Why would you do that? Why would you bring them to the place that has, like, factories built from, like, the Schnee Dust Company and stuff, and then bring in all of these Atlesians, both the ones from Mantle and the ones from the upper class city of Atlas? Like, just refugees in by the thousands and asking them, a lot of Faunus and Vacuo especially, to be like, hey, can you be accepting of these people who are probably literally slave owners, a lot of them? This is a bad thing. It's like a bad idea, but, like, writing wise, maybe it can be really good. So this is another situation of this is a bad thing for the characters to do, but, you know, that could be realistic because characters make bad decisions. So I'm hoping that doing this is a bad decision. Like, I'm hoping that there are major consequences for this choice. Because if not, then all the stuff that I just said applies not to the characters, but to the writing. But for now, it's not a writing issue. For now, it's the characters might be making a bad decision, and that's a good thing. It's good for the characters to make mistakes. Yeah, an explanation for spending space and time. I need an explanation for bending space and time. You can't tell me that these kids just told him how to bend space and time. Like, he specified that he needed that. Like, if you wanted this to be like a, oh, it's okay, it worked thing, you didn't need to specify that. But you did.
A place like...
Yeah, a place like these vaults. So how do they know how to build these vaults? Like, Oscar and Oz said that, or I guess it was Oz. Yeah, Oz said that you need to give the exact specifics of how to build the thing that you ask him to build. You can't tell me that these kids know how to build one of these magical vaults. Like, it's a pocket dimension that exists outside of space and time. Like, this is magic shit. Like, can't...
These vaults, wherever they are, they're not part of Remnant.
Yeah, they're not part of Remnant, so how can you explain how to build them?
They're smarter, or much more foolish than you realize. I'm going to need a reference.
Don't worry, the show will treat them as being smart. I'm being so mean. I'm gonna cut that part out. That was mean. So they just have like the shipment system so that they can like put different portals and stuff, but they never had to explain how to make a portal. They never had to explain how to bend space and time. They never had to explain how to create the pocket dimension or the vault or what it looked like, even though they were told that they had to make very specifics. And then they had the whole thing of don't fall, but then there's like he made it the most easy place to fall. Like, they could have described it and been like, hey, create it so that there's a flat floor. You didn't need to make a dark abyss. Look how those paths, this is a Rainbow Road situation. Like, you're gonna fall. Everyone's gonna fall. And no one freaked out about these portals. People just went through them. They were just okay with it. No one was like, what the fuck is this? They were just like, huh? I mean, shout out to Joanna for reaching through. You can't tell me that they explained how to teleport. Because if you did, why is teleportation not invented yet? And also, that would just render Raven's semblance useless.
Important clarification about this. Central location of yours. Do not.
I like how they're like, one point of clarification, and then say the vaguest thing ever. Just to clarify, don't fall. Won't tell you why, what for, teehee. Like it's don't fall or you'll accidentally fall into volume 9. It shouldn't be funny to me. It's because like I'm down for a detour. I know that they said there'd be a detour before Vacuo, so I'm down for volume 9 taking place in a different location or like this wonder world kind of thing that they've been building up, like the girl who fell through the world, them falling in the intro, like all that stuff that everyone's already guessed. I'm totally down for that, specifically because we need character stuff. We need the characters to grow and be affected by and impacted by the events in this volume. But with the way that it's going, it seems like things are going to be okay. It feels like this isn't going to be a loss, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that, Atlas falling has a big thing. Like, I mean, that's going to destroy an entire city's infrastructure. Like, that's going to have an effect, right? They don't have nearly enough food or places in Vacuo for all the refugees. They could have, asked, like Room of Requirement style, they could have asked for that, that location to be full of food and stuff, maybe, or would that cost... or would that count as a separate thing being built by the creation? If you make food, if you use the staff to make an apple and then you eat the apple and then you use the staff to make a banana, did you still get the nutrients from the apple? It's just too many semantics. That's just me wondering about the staff itself. There's nothing about the writing. I would love if Penny was freaking out about, especially with the autistic coding, I would love if she had sensory overload right now. Everything's so bright or so loud or it feels weird, everything's cold, everything's blank. If when she goes back and she's an Atlas, if that happens, I guess they might just be going into that central location. But I want her to be like, oh, it's cold or oh, it's hot when Penny gets her first ever sunburn in Vacuo. I don't want her to go to Vacuo, though. It's just, they just ruined her. This video is way too long. I really just wanted to rant about how sad I am about Penny. I can't believe that they did the impossible. They made me wish Penny hadn't come back to life. This chapter made me wish that Penny stayed dead in Volume 3. I fought that so long. I was always like, oh, but I love her so much. Like, oh, it's so great. I love seeing her back. But then they had no impact. Like, RWBY didn't freak out about her friend coming back to life. All that really happened is she gives her more hugs now. And then Penny never had to freak out or realize or even be hurt by the fact that RWBY was lying to her face for months about Salem, and then she became the Winter Maiden without that knowledge. Or at least we can assume without that knowledge, but it's possible that once Ironwood found out that he told Winter and Penny. But Winter didn't get mad at Weiss. Penny didn't feel hurt by it with RWBY. It's just everything's fine, nothing bad happened, nothing has consequence. It just makes me sad. And then, like, now Penny had the virus and the hacking, and it's like, even the people who hated Penny coming back were like, okay, this might justify it because something bad might happen. Like, maybe there will be a consequence, but now she's just a real girl. Even though she was already real. I don't know if this makes me think that she's gonna live, or if this makes me think that she's gonna die, because now the Maiden powers can't be transferred unless she's killed. But can she be killed at this point? Because ripping her entire body and substance out of her soul, which is, you know, the exact same essentially as ripping her soul out of her body, didn't kill her. It just created a new body for that soul that was just floating there on its own. So, like, all I ask is that they just don't do this to Oscar. Please don't. Like, because it doesn't make sense. Their souls are already merging. Like, they're already almost one soul. Ripping them apart at this point would make no sense. I don't know. I'm just sad. No, I can't tell. It makes me feel like I almost want her to die. And, like, I hate that because I adore Penny Pondina. I don't want her to die. But at this point, it feels weird if she doesn't die and if Nora doesn't become the Maiden. Like, maybe it was a fake out. Feels weird if Ren doesn't die, but that looks like that might not happen either. I don't know. I don't want characters to die. I'm not one of those people who's like, a character has to die in order to up the stakes. But the thing is that they've upped the stakes this whole volume, and all of them just kind of got resolved in the last 2 chapters. Like, Ironwood's in jail. Maybe he'll break out. Maybe he'll do something more. Or maybe some other stuff will happen. But, you know, Ironwood in jail doesn't stop the Aesops. But, oh wait, Marrow stopped them, right? Like, he just kind of was like, stay. Are they all tied up and in jail now, too? There was a lot in this episode I really liked. I'm just talking about stakes, specifically. Why don't we teleport everyone to another kingdom? Oscar, well, we can't do that. Why? Ozpin, here's exactly why. Then later, they do exactly that. Why be like, oh, that's too simple of a fix, Jean. Silly Jean, we can't just make that happen. That would be way too easy and way too perfect. And then they do it. So I'm hoping that that is foreshadowing, that is establishing that something's going to go wrong. Maybe everyone falls. Maybe everyone falls into the abyss, into the new world. I have no idea where they're going with this. So I really hope that I'm proven wrong. I really hope that all of this stuff seeming to go so perfectly is going to end in some sort of, there needs to be some aspect of tragedy to this volume, and it needs to be more than just, oh no, Cinder pushed us off the edge of the ledge and now we fell into a new world. Like, if that's where all of this is building up to, then it's like, that's the only thing that mattered this entire volume. Is that they fell, which would probably not even be their fault. And then, I don't know what I want to happen. I have too many ideas, and I just am sad about Penny. She just dropped on my list of favorite characters, and that makes me sad. She has this whole volume, which stinks because, like, I loved her in chapter 5, though. I loved her in chapter 2. I loved her in chapter 3. What I don't like is that they just kind of ruined her whole thing in volume 7 about finally being independent and stating her morals, but now, and like the whole thing that they set up in chapter 5 of volume 8, where it's like, don't you think Penny's had enough people telling her what to do? But then she comes back and then she just does everything that RWBY says without question all of the time. And like, I like their friendship a lot. And a lot of people seem to think that they're being set up to become like a canon relationship, which I don't feel like that's what's being set up. Like, I never got that vibe. Even back when I was like avid shipper of Nuts and Bolts. Maybe the ship name should just be Squishy Guts now. Because nothing matters. I'm trying not to cry. Like just as a trans person, non-binary person, and a person with ADHD and other things, I just really connected with Penny. And they just kind of took that away. Hopefully they'll keep the autistic coding, but that was pretty much just because she's a robot, and neurotypical people very often accidentally code robots as autistic. And so, like, that's an accident. I know that's not, like, what they were trying to do, but if she loses that, I'll be sad. It seems like they might not, though. Like, the whole, like, oh, do hugs always make you feel like this? And more, like maybe she'll still do that stuff. But, like, we'll see. We'll have to see. I'm just sad. I'm just sad, man. And it's just back with the whole, like, oh, it's not what defines you. And it's like, yeah, great. She learned that that's not what defines her. And then they just take it away. And so it's like, oh, see, your body is valid now. Like, not that they were saying that it wasn't before, but it's just, it sucks. It makes me sad. I'm just gonna stop recording before I cry on camera. I don't know if I'm actually, it's just frustration and disappointment, I guess. And I really hope that that's not what happens with the rest of Volume 8, because, like I said, this has been my favorite volume. This is potentially one of the best ones rating-wise, but that's only because of the setup. If they don't follow through, this might potentially be one of the worst ones rating-wise because they don't follow through. Like, RWBY's really, 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 like, there's a lot of flaws in the writing of RWBY, right? But one thing that they're really good at, especially lately, is setup. Like, they're great at setting up these incredible concepts and ideas, but the execution just falls flat, and that's why there are so many people who criticize this show who still watch it, is because they can see what it could be. Like, there's so much set up for, like, the first half of Volume 6, I was like, this is my favorite volume. I love this so much. The first half of Volume 6 was so good. And then the second half happened, and I'm like, okay, this is my least favorite thing. Like, when I think about what volumes are my favorite, I treat Volume 6, like, first and second half separately, because the first half is one of my favorite things in RWBY, and the second half is potentially my least favorite, honestly. Like, even worse than a lot of Volume 5. I said it. The second half of Volume 6 is worse than parts of Volume 5. Fight me. All right, whatever. I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful and I'm sad because I feel like I was let down, and I feel like that's my own fault for getting hopes up or whatever, but it's because of how good the writing has been this volume that it hurts this much more, that it seems like all of it meant nothing and all of it went nowhere. That's just it. That's my little rant about this episode. There's a lot of good in this episode. I just wanted to rant for right now. Like, this isn't a review. This is just a rant. Yeah, I love Penny Polendina. I cannot believe that this chapter single-handedly made me wish that she didn't come back to life, or at least didn't come back with all her memories, or just come back all perfect with, like if they had made, like, a Penny 2.0 where they're like, oh, the thing that was wrong is that she made friends. Let's make an emotionless version of her. Like, if Ironwood just took the blueprints and made her, but didn't make her with the soul, or if they did it, but they couldn't find the core, or they didn't have the memories, and so they made a second one who was, like, still had a personality and, like, happiness and stuff, but didn't remember the team. Or if she had, like, the identity crisis about, am I even the same person? Like, there's so much stuff that they could have done that they just didn't, because they said that they were pressed for time. And it's like, you could have done a lot better with the time allocation, but I'm not going to get into Volume 7 because there's a lot of stuff that, it's just, yeah, that's the thing. The reason people criticize the show is because they see what it could be and how good the setup is, and it's just that the payoff sometimes just is lackluster. Again, I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong in the next couple episodes. I really, 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 really hope so. And if what that means is Penny dying and the Maiden Powers transferring to Nora, and it's like, oh, she's not, similar with what Winter said for Volume 7 when she said to Penny about Freya, she's not gone, she's a part of you now. So it's like, Penny's not gone, she's a part of you now, Nora. Like, I feel like that could be really good. I don't want Penny to die, but I also didn't want her coming to Vacuo, so it's kind of like she'd be out of the story either way. That sounds horrible. I don't mean that. I don't want Penny to die, but also... And, like, especially because people were always like, oh, I don't want Penny to die again because it would make it so dumb that she came back to life just to die again. And I was in that boat of like, oh, it'd be such a bad writing decision to bring her back to life only to have her die again, like try to get us attached to her again just to take her away again. It wouldn't have the impact. But at this point, given how it's gone, it might be better writing-wise to have her die than to stay alive at this point. Like, that might be the better option, depending on how they do it. It's all going to depend on how they do it. It's just that follow-through has never been the strongest point of this series, which makes sense. It's the hardest thing to do with writing, is to follow through on these awesome concepts and ideas and setups and character things. It's just that there's so much to resolve and so many characters and so little time left in the volume that I am apprehensive. But we shall have to see what happens. Alright, that's enough of the rant for now. I'm just gonna go away now. Bye!